It's 2016, and that means along with it, it's January, which is cold, you don't want to really go outside, and unfortunately no new games are coming out. All the major titles were already released at the end of last year, our pockets are already pretty empty due to the holiday season. But it's a great time to catch up on your backlog of games you may have missed during the course of the year that you didn't quite get to, or maybe try out something you maybe normally wouldn't. Something a little bit cheaper, maybe an independent title. And that's exactly what I just did with Dogchild for the PlayStation 4 on PSN. It's an independent developed game, which, that sounds pretty good. It won a game contest in Spain by Sony, so I have to say that by seeing the previews, I was like, this probably is going to be a pretty fun experience. And even if it's not that great, it can't be that bad, right? I have to start off this review by saying, and I honestly can't believe I'm saying it, I may have already played the worst game in 2016. 2 weeks into the year, I may have already played the worst game of the year. Dogchild is an action, adventure, parkour, platforming, stealth game where you're playing as a guy and his canine companion, with your goal being to find out why these dogs have all gone missing from the local park, leading you to find out that it's an evil corporation behind the entire ordeal, and then of course you're trying to put a stop to it, freeing some animals along the way while finding out the story. You also have a secondary goal. The main character's parents have mysteriously gone missing, and you have a friend who helps you out that gives you basically your next mission marker, but outside of that, there really isn't too much interaction besides the main characters themselves, and maybe a little bit with the final boss of the game. Dogchild is broken up into 6 different chapters, basically 6 different set pieces for you to explore. You have a park location, an inner city, a desert, an Arctic-themed level, and then a laboratory in that Arctic-themed level. There's really no rhyme or reason why some of these jumps end up happening other than they were saying, you're following the trail of the evil corporation, you're all of a sudden now in this place. The storyline throughout the entire game is told very minimalistically, which doesn't necessarily mean it is a bad thing. The problem is you have these cutscenes that have no voice acting whatsoever, no mouth movements, and overall just very poor, jagged animations that go along with everything. It's almost unbelievable watching some of these cutscenes. It's just like, okay, this is a current generation game? And then, besides that, the only other story you're given is at the beginning of each of the chapters, you get a black screen with some text on it. I mean, they could have even put like a computer in there that kind of like outlined the entire mission briefing or something interesting that could have gone on with it. It's just a black screen with some text, and then inside of the levels themselves you get those very, very poorly put together cutscenes. As for the gameplay, you can switch between the guy and the dog at any time, which is actually pretty cool. You're playing as the guy, you can platform around, do the parkour, which barely works, if at all, as well as you can do the combat, which is some of the worst combat I've seen in a game in recent memory. You use a bouncy ball as your weapon, which that concept could be executed really well. The problem is your character has the slowest and most worthless throw for a weapon I've ever seen. With it being so delayed, you're constantly being attacked or missing your opportunity to attack an enemy. Once an enemy sees you and starts zapping you with a taser, and that's pretty much the biggest weapon the game has to offer is enemies with tasers, one will shock you, and before you're able to even throw the ball to hit the one guy, you're being shocked by another guy with a taser. If you have 2 guys shooting you with tasers and they're slightly off timing from one another, you're pretty much screwed. You also can only do things that advance the story via the main guy. You can pick up objects, interact with objects. open up doors, that sort of thing. As the dog, you're relegated to tracking scents, finding out where the items are located, finding doors that you can actually open up, and distracting enemies. Unfortunately, as the dog, you can't actually attack your enemies and do damage to them. You can only kind of do like a jump at them or bark at them in order to distract them so that the main guy can end up knocking them out. When you hit an enemy with your weapon, they're not defeated, they end up falling. They just kind of fall on the ground, and they are down on the ground for a short period of time. A countdown appears above their head, and once that countdown is gone, they stand right back up. So once you knock down 2 or 3 enemies at a time, which is kind of cool that you can even attack multiple enemies at the same time, they'll end up getting back up before you're able to tie them all down. Thankfully, the dog helps you out a bit, because if the dog is standing next to someone who's down, they can't get back up. But you have 3 enemies, you can tie one up, one's probably going to get back up, even with the other one being distracted by the dog. It just becomes very frustrating very quickly. The variety of enemies is very minimalistic as well. Besides the guys with the tasers, which is majority of what you'll be facing throughout the game, you have scientists that have gas or some kind of chemical, which works the same as the taser. You have a big guy who's a big heavy guy who runs at you, big muscly guy. He only appears as a boss and then a couple of times in the last level of the game, and you actually have to do damage to their head only. The problem is trying to aim at the head and actually get the ball to throw at their head while they're charging at you, even when they get distracted or end up running into a wall and they're stunned. You have a very small window of time in order to aim the shot up with the ball, and if their head moves just a little bit, you end up missing. In fact, I threw the ball so many times through this guy's head and not hit him, I thought the game was actually broken. You also have drone enemies that kind of home in on you, fly around, chase you down, and you gotta aim at those guys as well. Now, thankfully, when you aim at an enemy, you can press the X button and slow everything down, but as soon as you execute the actual throw, the game speeds immediately back up. So you may have aimed at 3-4 guys, have this perfect setup for this ball, but if one of them just slightly moves out of the way during the normal speed of the game, you end up missing, and then by the time you're able to get another hit off, they've already either ran into you via the drone or ended up shocking you with the tasers. Now let's talk about some of the really bad things about this game. The platforming. This game features some pretty intense platforming late in the game, and I mean intense for, I guess, this game's standards. It barely works. I mean, I was falling through the ground. I was falling through platforms. I would sometimes make a jump to a platform and my character would just drop dead for no reason whatsoever. In fact, I got stuck at a spot for 20 minutes because I didn't realize, and the game doesn't tell you, that you have to keep pressing X. You'll come to a cliff and it has the X button above your head, so you're like, okay, I'll press X. You press X and you jump to a platform nearby, but your character instantly dies. And I stood there in awe, just like, did I jump to the wrong platform? What did I do wrong? So I did it again, and same thing happened. After a few times, I realized you're supposed to keep pressing the X button and you'll jump from platform to platform to platform. But the game doesn't tell you this, you've never done it previously, and this is the only time in the entire game that you actually have to do this. So it was really kind of jarring that my character would jump, land safely on a platform, and then just die for no reason. I had it where I picked up a collectible in the game, and my character just dropped dead. And no enemy was around me, I wasn't sniped by an enemy from afar or something like that. My character picked up the collectible and just completely dropped dead for no reason whatsoever. Ledge grabbing. Ledge grabbing, something that should be pretty basic and simple in any platformer. It doesn't work. I mean, a lot of times I would think I grabbed a ledge, but I couldn't press any more buttons. I couldn't jump up onto the ledge or jump up to the platform that I was hanging on. And then I moved the camera and realized that no, I wasn't hanging on the platform. In fact, I was hanging over nothing. But I couldn't do anything other than drop, and usually that meant dropping to my death. And this happened so often, I just ended up getting used to it. There are a couple of moments where the platforming works to a degree. There's some icebergs late in the ice level that it kinda works. Outside of that, though, it was just a chore. I was failing over and over again. Even though I was doing it right, the game just decided not to work. And the only reason I was able to finally get by was the game decided, hey, you somehow landed on the right spot this time. We're gonna let you actually continue the story for now. As far as the way the game looks and sounds, the music's okay. I don't know if it was composed for the game, but it kind of feels out of place. Sometimes sound levels would change and fluctuate for no reason, even without me changing the sound settings. There was also a few times where the music just didn't seem fitting whatsoever, but it wasn't like it was ear-piercing or anything like that. And then there's the graphics, which are, and I don't usually harp on graphics, but this is a PS4 release game. The graphics are hideous. I mean, they look really, really bad. And honestly, if everything else was great about this game, I'd be like, give the graphics a pass, because everything else is amazing. But it's just a complete package of a poor game. And somehow this won a contest, an independent developers contest in Spain for Sony. And if this won, I can't believe what lost. I mean, what could possibly have lost this game? It's almost indescribable. I haven't played a game this bad in quite a long time, and I played through Afro Samurai 2 last year, and while that game was awful, and it really was awful, it has nothing on Dogchild. The game's $14.99. It also took me 2.5 hours to beat the entire game, and that includes getting stuck at one spot for 20 minutes and another spot for 15-20 minutes or so. So the game is very, very short. It has okay, easy trophies, but it has no platinum, so it doesn't even have that going for it. So honestly, there isn't any reason I can think of to pick up the game. Oh wait. There's one thing. There's one thing really good about this game. And honestly, it's the only reason why I'm not giving this game a 0 out of 10. And that is, you can make the dog pee on command. Yep. You can make the dog pee on command. And it actually is helpful. It knocks enemies on their butt if they end up stepping into the pee. And this actually helps you out. But it's a game where you can make the dog pee on command. And that's exactly what this game is. It is dog pee. This is the video game equivalent of dog pee. My final score for Dogchild is a 1 out of 10. My lowest score I have given, and maybe if I didn't get frustrated with the platforming as bad as I did, maybe I just got unlucky. Maybe the platforming works for everyone else. But because the platforming didn't work, the combat was horrendous, it was short, it was terrible to look at, it had almost no storytelling, and the storytelling was done so poorly. There's no pluses other than dog pee. Well, I have nothing else to say. But don't buy it. Don't check it out. Don't even look at it as a morbid curiosity, even if you like bad games, and I usually do like bad games. Just stay away from Dogchild. But that will wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and let's hope that every game released after this will at least be better than dog pee. I hope you enjoyed.